Hey guys, my name is Kendrick and welcome to ENFP Mail. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be interviewing JP here, and JP is he's an ENFP and he's an entrepreneur, and he's a six-figure earner, ENFP entrepreneur, which a lot of ENFPs I know want to get to a certain point, but there's a lot of hurdles to get there. So JP can share to us kind of his journey starting from before he got into business and to where he is right now. So JP, welcome to the interview. Thanks for doing this with me.
Thanks very much, Kendrick. It's great to meet you finally.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah.
What before we start the actual interview, what kind of ENFP are you in op terms?
I am ENFP. Now, in terms of op terms, I would not be as advanced in OP as probably yourself.
That's okay.
But I'm consume sleep, ENFP, masculine FI, and feminine NE. So I have strong feelings about how things should be, and I am addicted to gathering information and concepts and options for people and for myself. So that's roughly me in a nutshell. And then my focusing of those options, I think, comes through my strong FI and having a strong gut and opinions that I'm not afraid to say, often at my own peril. So that's what it is. Yeah.
So I actually I wrote down your exact type here. Just correct me if I'm wrong. So you mentioned the consume sleep part, but I have you as consume sleep, play blast, masculine, feminine, NEFI.
That's correct. Yeah.
So I think what you're doing is super cool because you have blast last. So you're gonna have a lot of trouble getting started. So how did you even get to where you are right now with that blast last? How did you get started when getting started is actually your biggest demon?
Really, I got started by, if I'm left to my own devices, early on in my career when I was younger, I suppose that's where I perhaps struggled to make progress. Not trusting my gut 100% and moving to action when I know I should have. So what I done was, like, I always made a point of surrounding myself by good people who I respected, who I could learn from, and who could ultimately carry me in a lot of circumstances, which is going to sound odd, but I'm intensely self-critical and self-aware in terms of my downsides, in terms of my weak spots or blind spots. And I always try to compensate for that by who I surround myself by. And that's ultimately what has allowed me to do that, because it brings that sort of accountability to it, so like if I describe at the minute, I have, my business partner, the CEO of the company that I'm CTO of at the minute, Obby Solutions. He's got a vastly different set of skills than me, and me, I have a different set of skills than him, but together we cover each other's blind spots, and we hold each other accountable, and we tell each other honestly where we're both at and what needs done. And I found that trend throughout my life. Like, I played music, composed music. I've been reasonably successful, and toured with established bands like Snow Patrol and things like that when I was at university. I've had music used in advertisements and by the BBC and in various other places. And again, that was around surrounding myself with band members that would hold me to account and would help me leverage my strengths but cover my downsides, and I suppose that's where it's at. But sometimes it can be difficult to hear those things that are your weak spots, so that was it, I suppose.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. That's a really good advice. Just surrounding yourself with the right people to kind of help you, bring you up when you're in that area where you have some weak spots.
Yeah.
So how many business are you running right now? Because you're a typical ENFP. You're doing so many things at one time. Like you're not just focusing on one area. Like what are your businesses and what are your side hustles? You could say.
Yeah, well, so there's two businesses I'm involved in at the minute. So the first business is I've been involved in perhaps 4 years now, and I had a friend of mine, and he came to me. He said, "I have an idea for a business. It's a problem I'm experiencing at the minute, but I'm really struggling to get it to where I know it can get to. Can you help me?" So he more said, "Look, I don't have the technical vision as to how to make this into reality, but I know we have something here, and do you want to basically start a company, join the company?" So we done that 3 years ago, 4 years ago. We tested the product, developed the product. Whatever little funding that we have, I stretched out in terms of a development plan and a budget that would allow us to recruit customers and start getting cash in and test the assumptions that we had, which is my downside. I love gathering information. I
Yes, of
love
course.
gathering opinions and concepts. And one of my big learnings has been to test and validate those things so that you can optimize. And again, that's validating it with other people. It's holding yourself accountable to other people, like potential customers who could test it. And, we launched the product 9-10 months ago. We're sitting roughly at $300,000 or $400,000 in annually recurring revenue at the minute. We're on target to probably hit 500,000 by December, and it will continue to grow and stack like that. But that's not because you use an interesting form of words. It's like you say these businesses that I run or I lead or I do, and I don't see it as that. And I never see any, although businesses have CEOs and CTOs and directors and founders, businesses that have one person at the lead who says I am the business and I run the business, and it's that, is generally bullshit in my experience, because it's the ability of those people to identify where their downsides are, where they need help, and realize it's a team effort. And that's the one thing I'll say about our CEO Gareth, who had the idea in the first place, is that he really values team, and that marries well with my theory that you employ expertise in the areas where you need it, rather than thinking you can do everything and everything. So
that's a very good tip about, as an ENFP, you can't do it yourself. You need to have a team, and it's a solid team, and you guys work in synergy.
yeah.
But before we move forward with this, just quick question. In this business that you just mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
what are the products and services that you offer that to the
So,
market, essentially?
yes. So ultimately, any business that has over 100 employees, okay, has certain responsibilities from a legal perspective, for their employees, for health and safety, for all these types of things. And for most of those companies and businesses, it's a real pain in the ass to do. It's lots of paperwork. It's time you're not getting paid for. It's time you should be out getting new customers in, serving your customers. And what we done was we devised a platform, a cloud-based platform. It's like a web app, which digitizes and automates, HR, admin, and compliance activities and health and safety for businesses. And it's like literally saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars, like annually. It's having such a massive impact. So in that regard, it's really easy to sell, because it sells itself. It's a no-brainer. And really, we only were able to come up with this solution because we listened to our customers. We listened to the people. We co-created a solution to make sure we were solving real problems in a way that was useful. And that's, yeah, that's it in a nutshell. That's how that came about.
How did you find this opportunity? Like how did you get this information from your prospects that this is what they're looking for, so that you can come up with a solution for this?
Well, by being interested in them, really, I was there's times in my life where I have been an absolute nightmare, and a disaster in terms of working with people because my opinions were so strong. To go back to the OP model, like my FI is like, I need to keep it in a cage sometimes, because I cannot. There's times I literally be telling myself to go, shut the fuck up, don't say anything, shut the fuck up, that's my self-talk. It's like, do I need to say this thing that my brain's screaming to say,
Yeah.
And it's like determining what's important and not important. So yeah, that was the big thing. Like, so it's not like it's something that's learned from me, because initially, and I take feedback, and try to evolve myself based on it, and I've made mistakes, in the past in the way that I've managed people or communicated with people. If I was in a band scenario early days, I seen other people having ideas as a threat. My FI would turn on, my identity would say, no, I'm the idea guy, I'm the NE guy.
Right.
What are you creating? And I've really learned that having the overall outcome in mind. So say, for example, it is in the band scenario, composing music, it's like you want the best piece of music. You let the idea breathe and live and be its own thing. You don't like own it. You let go of it, and that's how it becomes better. And you allow collaboration around the idea. And that's something I've learned as well, because you can be perceived as difficult to work with if you're too strong in your own convictions. And I can probably say early, if I go back like 20 years to my late teens, I was very strong in my convictions and didn't leverage empathy and asking good questions enough of other people. So now I'm just much more interested in people, and that's ultimately how the product formed. Is my key thing is to ask questions and test all my assumptions and be interested genuinely in people, which is not really what I'm doing now, but this is a different scenario.
Yes.
So that's, to answer your question, it's to be interested genuinely in other people and what they need, and try to stand in their shoes and don't make any assumptions. Form your assumptions based on what you're being told by the people you think you know about. Yeah.
So how are you testing those things that you have gathered from the customers? Like, what are your testing methods that you've used specifically, like to make sure that it's actually what?
Yeah, well, there's a few different ways of it. So initially, what I find is if you take entrepreneurship, for example, there's a whole bunch of theory out there in textbooks. Okay, some people have actually done the thing they're theorizing about. Some people haven't. Some people are studying groups of people who've done it and drawing conclusions from it and presenting advice. And then you have the other scenario whereby people don't go by textbook or theory. They just go out and try and do stuff, and they learn and they test, right?
Right.
My experience comes from both. I studied an MBA. I have, an honors degree in electronics and software engineering. I done the learning side of things, and I thought it was finished. But then one of my big reveals was to continue to learn. Continue to learn both from, proper official channels, but also from people who have done what you're trying to do and asking them good questions about problems you're coming up against. But to answer your question, it's what. So if I rewind, I always had a tendency to ask questions, from, let's say, my mid-20s. That's when I really learned that shit, I'm not asking enough questions. I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. I should be listening twice as much as I'm speaking. Let's try and use that philosophy. And then as I've learned more theory and taken more advice from people whose opinions I trust and who are in a position where I want to be, they have confirmed that. They have confirmed that, okay, the actual informal act of asking questions of people to see what they need, the theory says you should ask 10 people these questions and then build your MVP around this or whatever, you know. So all these different theories tend to support the practical experience. You know, so recently there's a model, like it's real simple. It's like if you have an idea, well the first thing is to determine who the first thing I would say is you determine who you say you say you need, you know, or who you assume needs your product or service. Like say for example it's yourself, Kendrick, and you're being you know, in your health and fitness buzz, right, and you're doing your health and fitness business. The cardinal sin that you can make is to think that you target everybody, right?
Right.
Everybody needs the thing I do. Like that's the first thing you need to call bullshit on, right? Because that's the first thing that you'll say is like, okay, you know, everybody needs it. I'm the greatest health and fitness guy ever, and anybody that walks in my door, I'm going to train them, you know, and that's a recipe for disaster if you're trying to grow a business. You know, what you learn is like, okay, so I do take all these people in initially. So say, for example, I've got 20 clients that I'm training from a personal, you know, training perspective. I would say, okay, 10 of these people are single. You know, 10 of them are married. Okay. I have like 3 females and, you know, 17 males. And then you would start to profile your customer and start to see who's sort of naturally being drawn to you, and then speak to each one of them to determine what patterns, I suppose, why are they with you? Like ask the difficult questions, ask them what matters to them, you know, in terms of a personal trainer. And it'd be like, well, I like your classes that start at, you know, 6 a.m. because it suits my work. And no, actually, I really like the personal connection we have, Kendrick, and the way that you say this and the way you plan my workouts. And then what you get is you'll get a list of people. So you might have a persona. It's like a single female, you know, that is 23 years old. And then you'll start to see that these people, in similar to the OP world where you have your 512 types, you'll start to see people cluster around. And then you can start to say, you know what, from a marketing perspective, I'm going to go after 23-year-old females from this area that have these circumstances. They're maybe at university or they're professional. They value the 6 a.m. class before they go to work. They value a personal plan. And then you target the shit out of those people, and your business will grow, and you'll be focused because you know every person that your marketing machine like is speaking to, that demographic. You know when they walk in your door exactly what they need, so you know how to speak to them to meet their needs and their pain points. And that's in a rough nutshell. Like really informally, it's like test loads of things, test your assumptions, ask people what they need and what matters to them and why it's important, and then test it. You know, that's the only way to do it. Test it, see how many customers you get, build it up, do a sort of an outreach or a marketing exercise around speaking directly to those people, see how many of them, see if it's true what you think and the information that you've gathered. And that's it. Like it's a series of gathering information, validating and testing the information, and then iterating or pivoting again, and then just keeping on doing that until you get really laser focused on who it is needs what you have, I suppose.
First off, man, thank you very much for blasting. Thank you.
Right.
That was fantastic. Like
Yeah.
that was really good advice. So just to summarize, I guess what you said, you basically you're throwing a big net out there first, and then you kind of see the pattern of like where people are clustering. And once you figure out, okay, I'll use myself as an example. I have a travel blog, and I just launched a membership website. So what I've noticed is that all my customers that paid were all over 50.
Wow. Right.
Or like one random guy, but he's like an anomaly, right? Like everyone was over 50. Which surprised me. So the average customer age for me is 50 to 70.
Yeah.
And they seem to be baby boomers. And
yeah. And they've got money, and they know. Yeah, there's a profile. And the good thing is, Kendrick, it's like now you know. It's like where do 50s to 70-year-old people get their information, right? Now, so that's where I need to be. You
Right.
know, if 50 to 70-year-olds are sitting in like hair salons and car garages reading the magazines on the table, that's where I need to have my shit, so they know about that thing. And I need to be telling them the reasons that I've confirmed with the 50 to 70-year-olds that are already there, the reason that they're at my thing. So it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, it's so, that focus, and this is like, because focus is my I was going to say anti-hero. I was going to use a stronger word than that, but like it's like the villain of the piece for me is focus, but it's so beneficial. But like once you focus and narrow down all these patterns and theories and information and research that you're gathering, you can reap the reward of it, and that's really one of my big learnings too.
Yeah, dude, I just wrote that down. That's freaking amazing.
Mm.
I made, early on my entrepreneur career, I work in fitness right now. That's my day job. And then on the side, I have a travel blog, and I have this ENFP male YouTube channel. I think as an ENFP, one of the biggest mistakes I made before is that, like, I already found two channels that was clearly bringing in customers,
Mm-hmm.
but I almost like did not want to just stick with those two. I wanted more options, right? So I kept like trying more and more when I should have just honed in. Once I figured out like, hey, this two channels is where the 80% of my customers are coming from. I need to, develop this more. But I didn't do that because, I'm an idiot ENFP who like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Right. And I'm like, just shot myself on the foot. I lost so much money on marketing because,
Yeah.
I didn't like laser in focus once I figured out where the clustering were happening. Right. So
Yeah.
definitely really good advice, man.
It's so effective. And the other thing is, Kendrick, I mean, and this is one of my other learnings, and like, first of all, you have to accept that you're an asshole. There's some aspects of you that are asshole like, right?
Oh, yeah,
And
100%.
once I accepted that I wasn't infallible and where my weak spots were, it meant I could address them. And the focus thing is the one thing. But the second thing, which isn't as hardcore, because I tend to be very self-critical internally, like, and that's part of the price you pay for being, like, I suppose, really trying to be self-aware when you have that inclination of being hard on yourself, is that you need to be easy on yourself. Like, I am, like, one of the big things that stopped me from doing things for a long time was doing what you've just done, is saying, yeah, I wasted so much time, I was such a fucking idiot at
Yeah.
ENFP, right?
Yeah.
When it was, well, all those fucking brilliant things that I have done have led me to here, which means now I know what I'm going to do, right? So it's like letting go of that perfectionistic expectation of the things that we do and the things that we expect of others, and just trying to embrace progress of whatever description that comes in, because that allows me to be more grateful to people that are around me, who I'm holding to maybe much too high an expectation. But it also allows me to be more forgiving of myself and motivates me to do more things, as well. And that was a big learning too.
So basically what I got from you is,
I can blast, by the way. That's the thing. I'm blast last supposedly, but I do find myself blasting and meandering. But yeah, so yeah, sorry about that.
yes, you are, but you're blasting NF a lot. It's like the stuff that you just told me about testing. That was the first NT one that you blasted about. The rest were NF stuff. Like even right now, you're talking about NF stuff, which is good. No, this is good stuff because like before I was thinking about like when I lost, I think I lost like almost $4,000 on a bad marketing campaign. I did direct mail marketing and I lost all my money and I went into debt, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I guess like what you're saying is like, hey man, that's part of the deal, right? Like part of the journey is those mistakes. The mistakes, they need to happen. They're not like, don't feel bad that they happen. They're supposed to happen. You wouldn't have gotten to where you are right now and learned what you learned if you didn't do those fuck ups. Those fuck ups are part of the deal. They're part of the package, right? Like, so that's pretty much what I got from you. I don't know if
that's completely true. In your ROI, when you're doing your analysis on return on investment, you really have to factor in what you've learned from that, because the things that you've learned and the experience you've gained are often like 10x, 10 times more valuable than the dollars and cents that you've spent on that thing. Like, really, because it'll compound over time. Everything that you do and earn after that will be in some part down to that thing that you learned but wasted 4 grand on or whatever, you know.
Yeah, but it still hurts, man. It doesn't change the fact
Oh,
that
yeah, fucking hurts.
like, it fucking hurts still.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know. I guess in the bigger scope of things, it's really minuscule, like from the lessons that you learn from it. But at the moment, man, it's
The further in the past it is, the less it hurts.
yeah,
The longer it lingers on a credit card or a loan or however you funded that thing, like, and that's another thing I found is like personal debt. Like, the moment I got rid of my personal debt and cleared it down and focused that as a priority, it fucking freed my mind completely. Like, freeing myself of like, if you have a mortgage, like I own a couple of houses, that's fine. There's, anything that's long-term fixed debt, that's fine. If it's paying down an asset, that's fine. But things like credit cards and things, once I cleared and got rid of that stuff, and I only done that maybe in the past number of years, it's been a game changer for me. Like, really has been, because of my decisions now are not around money. In the true sense, it's like in the past, perhaps you were taking job roles because of money and things like this, and now you're taking it because you're passionate about a thing, if something you believe in. You're creating things. You're creating a future for your family, for yourself. You're collaborating with people and adding tremendous value, to your customers potentially, and solving real problems, as opposed to just lifting a paycheck to service a credit card bill, or and being under pressure from that regard.
How old were you when you cleared off all your personal debt?
Uh, Mid-30s probably.
Like 35, 36, 34, like roughly.
Probably 30, 30. There was cycles. There was a few. It was like, I suppose it's like somebody giving up smoking. It's like you have a few attempts at it. So there's times where you think you've adjusted the behaviors, and then you maybe go on that holiday you shouldn't have, or you do something like that. But I was probably on my way in my late 20s, to being aware of this being something I needed to address,
Right.
that, like, in terms of saying, what, that, like, I need to learn how to manage cash flow. I need to develop financial skills. I need to develop these skills not only because they'll be useful to me personally, but if I'm going to be running businesses and contributing in senior positions in businesses, I need to be able to make sensible financial decisions. And that's really helped me. And it also helped in developing my own identity in that regard. So perhaps your financial skills are inherited from your family, or from the people you hang around with, or your peers, or things like that. And it was like developing my own identity financially, around what my values were and money, and understanding why it was important, because the freedom, like it's unbelievable, the freedom and the overall feeling you have, because the decisions you make are, I suppose, as pure as they can be. You're allowed to leverage your gut. You can go with it. You're not making decisions based on things to be functional, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely need to take some of that advice, because personal debt is something that's like, I'm always in and out of personal debt, and that's terrible.
Yeah.
So I'll definitely take that advice, because that's my number one problem area right now, if I were to admit.
Yeah, and see, to be honest, like, once I made the decision, or like, there's a thing over here called PPI, which is like payment protection insurance. It was pretty much like a scandal that happened in the past 15 years, where banks were charging people for insurance and not telling them.
Yeah.
They weren't giving them a choice. So like, there's lots of claims against it, and people getting refunds and things like that. But once I found these things happening, like, once I actively sought to I'm the type of person that actually manages his finances well, but is not like a penny pincher. You know, it's like I do the good things. You know, I can go with my wife to the west coast of the States for 3 weeks in March past and go to a Tony Robbins event and go down to San Diego and do these things. I don't live a limited or frugal life at the minute, but I make good decisions that I know to be true, you know, rather than sort of going, oh, you shouldn't, you know, people saying, oh, you shouldn't be doing this or you shouldn't be doing that or do this or don't do that. It's like, okay, well, listen to what you think, but I'm making my own decisions now about things, you know, and that was it. So yeah, that's what I would say. Like, and when I set that out, then you take something like PPI, all of a sudden, you know, it was found that, you know, I had maybe like 3 or 4 grand, you know, in claims that I could get from the banks, you know, when I was on this journey. And then all of a sudden, just these things started to happen that helped me clear my debt down, you know. It was like, you know, I'm not into the woo-woo universe, you know, law of attraction stuff. I'm, you know, I'd be a cynic, you know, naturally, not of that in particular, but in general, I am cynical of things, right? But there's definitely something about where you put your focus. You know, if you put your focus and energy in a certain direction, you can, you know, get massive gains. And also, you know, where you, I suppose when you address it at an identity level, that's the crucial thing.
So the business that you were talking about earlier, is that the OB solutions that you were
Albie, yeah.
That's something else?
This is it here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like what is your other business then? Like, because you have two business, right? What is the other one?
So what happened? So my father has an electronics business. You know, he manufactures and designs electronics. Himself and my mother got me my first computer when I was like 6. It was like an Atari ST 520. And that's when I was like messing around with BASIC and various things like that. And really got into technology at a young age, and I was exposed to it. So my father had this business, and I have worked in his business, you know, for summers when I was young on the production lines, you know, making circuit boards, doing various things. You know, some of my friends would have come in and helped in summers too, things like that. Actually, Gareth, who is CEO of Abbey, would have worked in my father's business in summers too. When like we know each other quite a while, 30 years odd probably. And I. So my father has an electronics business, which I was part of. And then when I went out, worked for the business, then I worked with Caterpillar. I worked with Tyco. When I was with Caterpillar, they put me through my MBA. And then I came back into my father's business, having got a lot of experience, and started a business with him around energy storage and renewable products, which was something that he was interested in and I was interested in. So then I gathered all the resources I needed to do that and started like an energy storage business, and with my father, and that's the other business. You know, so I suppose whenever I joined my father's business, it was probably turning over around maybe 300 to 400K. And then when I left it, to go out on my own, it was turning maybe 1.5 million, you know.
Oh, so you're not doing that business anymore?
No, not actively day to day. No, I'm the CTO in the business. So my job at the minute is, so I'm introducing systems, Obby is one of them, that will allow the scaling of the business, and almost preparing it for sale. So it was like our investment or sale to allow it to scale properly and allow my father to exit, you know. So that's the two things I have at the minute, which is, I think when we were having a conversation offline, it was like, well, why wouldn't you just focus on the software business and not do the, you know, if the electronics business isn't, let's say, as profitable or whatnot.
Right.
And the reason for that is, there are different levels of maturity, and there's still a tremendous amount of value in the electronics business if the efficiency and learnings that I have from the software business are brought to it. Yeah. And then really, that's the whole point. So we're, preparing a portfolio against the other business, getting it valued properly, and really looking to the future, of it, because manufacturing in and of itself is quite a capital intensive exercise. You have to buy stock, you have to hold stock, you have to wait till every last part is in before you can make a thing, that you've designed. Then it has to be tested and through and various things. So it's, whereas if I am shipping a software product, I develop it and I can ship it infinity times. I just scale my AWS back end, and the server architecture or whatnot. And, so it's marrying those two models. And that's sort of it. But I'm still doing a lot of the NE on that in terms of where that's going. But, aligning with the people that can make it happen, so that's it. So it's two different challenges. It's like sort of saying, well, what if you had a kid that was really smart and a kid that wasn't really that smart? Why do you focus on the kid that's not really that smart? It's like,
That's a good one.
it's like, oh, it's like, well, I think they're both equally as smart. They have different strengths. They maybe learn differently. There's different opportunity for both of them.
Yeah, that's good. That's
so fucking,
really good.
Lay off my kids, all right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but just to clarify, you said your dad is exiting that business. Then does that mean you're going to be the I guess the CEO then for that business after your dad exits? Because you said that's a business that you and your dad started together. So I'll just
So my dad started the electronics business about 30 years ago, 1989. So I was 8 years old at that point. And then in, I think, roughly 10 years ago, we started the energy storage business together. And then that also meant that my father's business could make the energy storage product, et cetera, et cetera. So it was hand in glove, that everything was a synergy of, together. But my father's in his mid 60s, and he's in Spain at the minute with my mother. And so let's say, for example, while they're in Spain at the minute, I'm negotiating, how the future of the business looks to present back to him and agree on what things look like moving forward and all that type of good stuff. But yeah, so it's quite fluid. It's an active, profitable business, and it makes good money, and it's very unique, and it does what it does well. It's just trying to plot the future and succession of the business, and again, my experience and my learnings have taught me that I am stronger and people are stronger when they collaborate, and the statistics support that too. So it's like, to be honest, it's amazing my father has done what he's done, being at the helm of a business by himself for 30 years, because there's something ridiculous like a 95% failure rate of companies that only have one founder. Like some ridiculous statistic, like there's 95% of companies fail within a couple of years if they only have one founding member. So I've definitely found that to be true, that success and longevity can be found by collaborating and inviting people to co-found with you, after you do due diligence and if you know them well enough, Sorry, I'm blasting here, but yeah.
It's okay, man. No, so I just want to clarify. I'm trying to, I guess, clarify things, right? So, so you have an electronics business with your dad, and that's the one that you said, in an offline conversation that not offline, sorry, on Facebook, where you said that's kind of painful to manage, but you said you're not going to give that up because it's still good, has a lot of potential. You just need to restructure things. And then on the other side of things, you have OB Solutions, which is your current baby that you're working on right now.
Yeah.
And this was much easier to work with, just because you guys, right from the get-go, you structured it properly. You know, because the electronics business, then you have to kind of backtrack a little bit to fix things up before you can move forward, right?
Now this is interesting, right? Hold that thought. Whatever question you're going to ask there, hold it. Remember what it is, because there's something interesting that you've just said there, right? That I've just realized. The electronics business deals with things in the real world, right? It's physically making things.
Right.
Right. And it's like, I can only make these things if I have the parts in front of me to put it to fucking together, right? Pardon my language. But in the software world, I can create anything. Like, I think of something, right? I think this thing should do this, right? And I think of the conceptually how it works, and I can turn it into that thing that I've imagined. You know, and I think that's probably, and this is why I think the whole ENFP, certainly the NF, the strong NE, it's from an early stage. I was really drawn to software and computers from I was like 7 years old, 7 years old, you know, and everything to do with that type of technology. Like, I was just it was all consuming for me because the possibilities were endless with it, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, to watch in, you know, when you have like, you know, 8-bit and 16 graphics going to, you know, 32-bit and 64, and watching that curve where all of a sudden things were looking real, you know, and you know, and to watch it actually, shit, this stuff, like this conceptual stuff can now turn into like actual physical, appear to be real stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and that's it for me. Like, that's what I mean. There's some people that physical real world NT stuff will be really appealing, you know, but to me it's like, why would you endure the pain of that? You know, there's easier ways of doing things, you know. You know, so anyway, sorry, that was it.
Yeah. For some reason, when you were talking about 8-bit to 16-bit, 32-bit, like all I can think about was like Nintendo to Super Nintendo to like PlayStation.
No, yeah, well, that's what I was imagining. I was imagining all the Nintendos I had growing up. That was it. Yeah, absolutely.
So I just want to be a little bit, again, SD clear with the OB Solutions business. So it's an HR company, right? And you're bringing HR solutions to companies. Like,
it's not a HR company. What it is, and this is why I struggle to be ST clear. So I'm going to jump on a tangent here. I was at like a lunch yesterday because our company has been nominated in the top 2 enterprise software startups in Northern Ireland in the past few months, right?
Right.
And like, which is a big deal because in Belfast and in Northern Ireland, software is what we're really good at. Like, it's a real competitive thing. So we were at a lunch yesterday of all these people who have been nominated for this type of thing. And out of nowhere, the guy who was chairing the lunch, you know, so the guy who was chairing the lunch was awarded and nominated into like the Hall of Fame for fucking tech founders. Like, he's like started 3 companies, he's exited, you know, them for hundreds of millions. Like, he's fucking like a rock star, you know, in terms of, but you'd have never heard of him, like, you know, but and so the first thing that he said was, okay, there was 10 of us at this lunch. And he said, yeah, so can you all just give a brief, like 30-second pitch on what you are and who you are? And to me, it's like, fuck, right? How do I say everything in 30 seconds? How do I get my NT down? Like, how do I explain what this is? You know?
I'd love to hear some of your 30-second pitches. That would be fantastic, man.
It's cruel, like, it's really cruel, you know, but it's something you have to work at, you know, this type of stuff in this world that we're in. If you can't succinctly say what you do, you know, in 30 seconds, you're snookered. Like, people will just go next, move on to the next thing. They don't have the attention span for it. So,
well, because I just noticed, like, since we started the interview, like, you're doing something that my girlfriend does and my sister. I'm pretty sure they're both ENFP with Blast Last, and to get to the point that they want to get, like, they almost have to run in circles, like around and around and around and around, and finally they get to the point, and I'm like, it took you like took you 1 hour to get to that one point. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. I'm not trying to like insult or anything. I'm just like, it's just an observation I made, which I find very
I
bad.
don't take that as an insult. That's fine.
Yeah,
But I do, yeah, and gather information in that way too. Like I
yeah,
circle gather. Like I'll consume like lots of different stuff, and some shit sticks, some doesn't.
yeah,
But yeah, that's interesting. Get to the point. That's the whole thing.
yeah.
That's my struggle in life. Get to the fucking point.
Yeah, get to the fucking point, man. But like,
Yeah.
you said some good stuff here. I actually wrote it down. But like, like I had to like I had to wait for you to get to to. It's almost like you're talking to yourself first before you can like see the point. Like
Yeah.
it's very interesting for sure. Um,
Yeah.
now,
Totally.
before you got into those two businesses, what were you doing before you got into business? Like I want you to kind of like I want you to kind of explain the journey from like where you were when you had personal debt, when you were working like a day job,
Hmm.
and then what was the trigger that made you decide, hey, I want to start a business? And then, and what were some of the pains along the way, like the struggles and the pains?
I'll give you a really long. I'm going to give you my life story here. Okay.
Sure, yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. So
And make sure you timestamp it too when you're telling the story.
yeah.
Give us the timestamps. All right.
Okay. Right. So that's it. Right, here we go. Sometimes that was cool.
Yeah, I need some timestamps, man. I need to be because like I don't want you to be teleporting all over the place. Like let's get some
No, I'm
timestamps.
going to do it in chronological order. You're going to get like a timeline here, right?
Yeah, let's get a timeline here.
Okay, here's the timeline, right? So, in when I was, I want to say like 8 to 9 years old,
Yeah.
I started to grow a lot. Okay, like I started to get really tall. Like I started to, develop physically to be very strong, right? And by the time I was probably, so that's about 8 to 9 years old. By the time I was 10 or 11, right, I'm going into real detail here. I was roughly the height I am now, which
Oh
is
my
around
God, what is this mutant
which is
puberty?
around 6 foot. Yeah, right. Now, this is the whole nature nurture thing for me, right? Because what that meant was in terms of social conditioning, the environment that I was in and how people treated me and what I had to do to get somewhere and do certain things, it was different. So that I was naturally good at sports at that point. So at that point I was like fucking in every youth team. I was like the player in teams, when I was younger, up to probably the age of about 15 or 16. So like for a good 5 to 6 years solid, like I was the central player if I was doing something sportingly. As a result of that, I integrated well socially with people. I also was into music, so I wasn't like a jock, right? I didn't particularly train hard because I was just naturally physically very big. So I never had to train or work too hard to be good at like sport, for example. Um, so once I was about 16 or 17 and other people started to get to my level and taller and things like that, all of a sudden my whole paradigm shifted. I had to like fucking train, right? And I was like, fuck, I've never had to do this before. What the fuck's this? This seems like a lot of effort. And I gradually had to change my shift into thinking, shit, like, I really need to work at things, you know, um, and, I started to get into music, and then at that point, it was when I realized, because I did play music and I wrote music and done things, I socialized with people that done that too. I had a few bands and things while I was playing sport. And then that's when I realized that I was actually, my FI was on the music and not the sport. I was like, I get a lot more, from writing music, playing music. It feels better to me, so therefore at that point I had to, I shifted, lost interest in sport to a certain degree. Um, Still played sport, still play sport to this day, because there is still like a natural thing there. It's weird, like, um, but yeah. So then I moved into music, and at that point, then I was more reliant on other people, Okay, so I had like a band of people, let's say, okay. And I'm going to talk about this personal rather than my work or professional life, because at this point I'm just going from like job to job. I'm like going, okay, I need to go to university. That's the thing that people like us do. I need to get these grades to go here and then fucking do it. And still not working tremendously hard, but achieving, you know, what I needed to achieve. And at that point then I got into music. I was really passionate about it, but I still had to learn how to function in a group of people, because my experience up until then was like, you're the biggest guy. You're the guy that has the teams. Like, you can win this game for this team. It's your responsibility. You fucking do it, right? So that was the role I had then, early days with bands and music and teams that I managed and things. It was like, it relies on me. I'm the guy that says what should happen. It's my responsibility. And then if I fast forward to like 21 years of age to like my mid 20s, that's when I gradually learned that I can't be like a pushy ass. Like, it's actually you trying to lead and help people is pushy, and you're not actually engaging with people. You're not interested in other people. You're interested in what you need to do for this situation to succeed. Um, and that's when I really learned to try and, like, empathize and engage with people. But it was just because my default programming and what got me to there was that thing. Okay. And so at that point I was doing what things like, so if I wanted to go on holiday, I just went on holiday, I put it on a fucking credit card. I didn't think about, okay, I'm earning this amount. I wasn't doing the SI. I was saying like, oh, I was earning this in a month and I can spend this. So I'll put this much away to fucking do this. It was like, I really want to go on a holiday. And maybe your girlfriend at the time said, yeah, we should go on holiday. And, and maybe you're on nights out and, you bought a round of drinks or whatever, without thinking on the SI detail, you know what I mean? Which is, so then it was just gradually those learnings that done that, and establishing routines and controls and being more interested in people. And then there was a point, and it was about probably 7 years ago, where I'm really interested in creating things, whether it be in technology, software, composing music, doing these types of things. And for all my life, I'd sort of been told, well, are you a musician? Are you doing music? Or are you like, are you an engineer? Are you a fucking software guy? What are you like? And then I was trying to box myself for years, and it was a bit of an identity crisis, I think. That didn't help me commit to any one path, because I was trying to satisfy other people probably. And when I say other people, I meant like society. It's like, here are the boxes that exist in society for people. Which one do you fit in? And then about 7 years ago, I said, fuck it, I am all these things. And the only way I'm going to be all these things is if I do it myself. And for years I'd be getting, that people saying to me, well, why do you rely on people? Like, it's almost, I had a reliance on people then. It went from full circle from me as a youth, carrying teams all by myself, to go and, right, fuck, I really need to depend on other people and work with other people, to a dependency on other people. And then for me to come out the other end of it going, you know what, I need to balance these two. I need to canvas opinion from people. I need to respect opinions. I need to be interested in what other people need. And then I need to make a decision myself about the shit. I don't say, he said this, so I should do that, or she said that, so I should do this. It's like I put all the information in the blender and then make a decision myself, which is generally my gut decision. So trusting the gut is a big one there. So that's generally and as that process happened, you could probably extrapolate my personal debt peaking up, in my early to mid 20s, and then plateauing the whole way throughout my 20s while I ignored it.
What was the highest point of your debt, if you have if you don't mind sharing the number?
Value wise,
yeah.
Fuck, I've had like, I don't know, 40 grand's worth of debt, 50
Oh
grand's
my
worth.
God, that's massive.
Yeah. And that's, between, unsecured loans and credit cards, but it's, I probably have about 2.5 grand's worth of debt now that fluctuates between 0 and 5 whenever I decide to do whatever the fuck I want which
my
is
my
like,
my, my debt right now is only 6 grand. It like pales in comparison to that 50
yeah,
grand
yeah, yeah,
monster that you had to tackle. Jesus.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's it. Like, it probably peaked at that, and it's like, but the good thing was, it was like, it was just addressing it, because it was like things when you're ignoring things. Like in my early 20s, mid 20s, it was like, oh, what's going on here? You maybe weren't, uh, let's say, opening letters from the credit card company because you knew it wasn't pleasant. And then that was a reinforcing loop. So it's just like, fucking do the shit that you need to fucking do, Jay. That was like, that's just like, that's as simple as it. Stop doing the things that conceptually you think you want to do and that are enjoyable. Necessarily, they feel good and they feel like the right thing to do. And there's things that your consciousness will say to you, you really need to do this, you really need to do that, and that's your gut. I don't mean the thing that's like, fuck, I'd love to have that bag of potato chips there and I'm not controlling myself. I mean, like, there's a thing inside you that consciously tells you what you should and shouldn't be doing, and it. You know what I mean? I know when I shouldn't buy that other guitar, or that other guitar pedal, or that other effect, or that other. I know, that if we're stacking up a tour, that's doing 12 dates across the UK, I should probably negotiate better fees rather than just saying, fuck it. I don't want to have conflict with people in case they don't like me, or sacrifice the date. So I'll fund this on a credit card, or I'll go on that holiday, rather than sort of saying, you know what, maybe if we go here, it'll make a difference to that. It's just making better decisions. But generally, your self-talk is telling you the truth about these things, and it's learning to listen to that truth. What was a big help for me. 40 or 50 grand is probably an exaggeration, but it was certainly 30 to 40 grand. It was like that. It was absolutely, because it cycles, but at its peak it was probably that. But it wasn't like it was serviceable debt. That was the problem. It was like manageable. It was like, I wasn't like, I was meeting my payments. I was doing it. I would just every 6 months get a letter from my credit card company saying, "You're a really great customer. We're increasing your credit limit." And then
Oh
all
my
of a
God.
sudden, and then before you knew it, it was like you're up again. And then at one point where you took stock and you looked at all the data, you done your SE. You sort of said, "Here's the 5 cards I have and the personal loan. What the fuck is it?" And then you're like, "What the fuck? This is like 40 grand or whatever," and then it's like, and then what I had to do is I had to really stack up the pain against it. I was like, so how much have I paid in interest here over the past like 5 years, and what the fuck did that about me? And
Yeah,
then
how much interest did you pay?
well, it's, credit cards aren't cheap, like, and but once you put focus on clearing it and realized it was like holding me back psychologically and in my career and socially, and doing it was just having a negative effect. It was a game changer, yeah. But it was something that escalated pretty quickly, let's say over 10 years. And then but the learnings from it, that's the thing. Like where if I hadn't have done that and went through that, there's no fucking way I would be where I am with Obi. There's no way that I'd be approaching things the same way now. There's no way that I would have all the great things I have in my life now, the great family I have, the kids I have, my 2 kids, my wife, Camilla, the business partners I have, and Gareth, and, my dad even, and Josh, and these types of people. So yeah, it's just trying to look back on that as if I'm a stupid idiot, but like, this was all the learnings that were beneficial to me. Again, I'm blasty.
It's all right, man. No, it's
Yeah.
good stuff. So when was the turning point when you decided to go from employed to entrepreneur? Like, what was the turning point there?
The turning point, um, honestly, the turning point was probably being involved in businesses whereby I knew the wrong decisions were being made.
You knew you had a better solution.
Yeah, and the solution was packaged up and presented in so many ways, so many times to be, let's say, the senior management people's or the MD or the CEO's decision or whatever it is, that it was, that it was just like banging your head against the wall. But then there's other things like I mean, if I take my work, when I worked in Tyco and Caterpillar, the managers that I had and the people that I was there, I learned so much from them. That like there was so many great people. Like the stuff I learned from my dad as well. Like the stuff I learned from my mum ran a residential home. She retired there a couple of years ago. The stuff I learned from my mum, these things. And it was really the freedom thing, I think, was the fundamental thing. Freedom to think, freedom to be able to apply creative solutions to things, freedom to add value, freedom to be, home early for your kids if you need to be them, for freedom to drop your daughter at school if you want to do that, freedom to work an all-nighter to achieve something, freedom to be flexible and versatile and agile to really maximize, what it is you want to do, I suppose.
Um, so how do you get over the ENFP's fear of commitment? Like ENFPs are commitment phobe. They don't like to be boxed in. We want to be free,
Mm-hmm.
free spirits. Yet you are in two different business. You also have a side gig as a musician.
Mm-hmm.
And like how did you manage to commit yourself to these organizations without having that internal feeling that I want to get out, I want to be free, I want to be like to do the things that I want. Like how did you ever get over that? Is that still inside you? Do you think about that, or is it like you've kind of come to terms with it?
How many jobs do most people have?
Most people have one job,
Right. I have three. Right.
so you got your
So
fixed net for variety in that sense.
yeah, and that's it. Like it's like, why do you work in health and fitness but have a travel blog and do some other things? I'm sure too. Like
Yes.
the freedom is in the variety, and the trick is in establishing variety that pulls you in the direction that you want to come to or the destination you want to go to. That's me. And like even to the point of scheduling, see, keeping a tight weekly schedule, it's like really, it's a pain in the ass for me. Like I don't like it at all, but it's been beneficial. And one of the things is like I have to plan. So one of the things I use to trick myself is I plan. Yes, I have things. I have meetings that I need to be here for this. I have sales meetings here. I have customer on board. I've like lots of stuff to do. I have development meetings. We're developing a launching product. We've like lots and lots of different stuff, and that's really fixed. But I have time in my diary where I don't know what I'm doing, but I've defined it. I've sort of said, okay, from from 3 to 5 tomorrow, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, but that's my I don't know what the fuck I'm doing time.
Oh, I see, I see.
Yeah.
You
So
schedule that too.
yeah, so it's like I'm tricking myself and like because I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I know there'll be something in there. So it's like feeding these dragons that exist, and keeping them in the cave, you know. But yeah, definitely, like I've managed to narrow down to three things, which isn't narrowing down at all. So
But I think as an ENFP, you do need to do more than one thing. If you like, if you're not an INTJ, you can't just do one thing. It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
something inside you almost kind of like almost like freaks out. Like
Mm.
it's like touching a hot kettle, I guess. Like it's like as an ENFP, you cannot just do one thing at one time. Like you cannot focus if you're only doing one thing. Your focus is actually better when you're doing two or three things like in one go. I don't know if you agree with that or if you that
I
resonates.
do. Yeah. Well, there's two things that happen to me. I will either disengage, so my energy levels will like just go really low. I will, and I will stop engaging in that thing, but I will just like, I will be there and present, but I'll not be present properly. Right.
Right, right.
And then the other thing is emotionally, I can go really fucking like my temper when it got like I don't lose my temper very often, right? But it often comes when people are being too controlling in terms of, I think it tends to be in terms of your thought process. Like, so say when somebody tries to impose their thoughts on you, as in their thoughts that you should believe. You know, I can respect other people's opinions. I can accept it. I can take it on board. I can form my own opinion. But whenever there's like a forcing of somebody trying to force their opinion on you in a way where they're trying to get you to agree to it or believe in it, like I can really lose my shit at that. And so that's the two things. I either disengage totally or I'll fucking lose my shit. And that's pardon my language, but that's it. But it's the balance. That's the game you play. You know, you constantly have your sensors on and your radar on and your self-awareness meter. And when you start feeling things going out of balance, you try and reset it and then go again. I think that's it.
So JP, we're gonna wrap up the interview pretty soon. I want to get like a final blast from you, like an SI blast, like let's do your JP step by step blast. All right. So what advice can you give someone that's like a younger ENFP, or maybe just an ENFP, just, you know, the whole world's ahead of them. They want to get started in business. They realize, you know, working 9 to 5 is not for them. They want to build something for themselves. And they're open-minded and starting it with a team, but you know, but they don't know how to get started, what they want to do. Like, what kind of advice, step-by-step advice, can you give a young ENFP that's starting in business? So, and yeah, let's start with that.
That's a very tough one. It's funny because Kevin messaged me, who's also an ENFP.
Yeah.
Who's 24, who's
right.
like 14 years younger than me, and had asked something similar, right? And I found myself, as I do, because, you know, consume sleep or whatever, I'll say, okay, give me a while to think about that, and then I'll come back with some stuff. And I found myself just like, fuck it, like the NE dumping of patterns from the last 14 years was like relentless. It was like, yeah, these are the things I would tell like, you know, there were so many of them.
Right.
So so it's something I've thought about, but I wouldn't say this. One of the first things I would say is listen more than you speak. Be genuinely interested in understanding other people, and value being a learner and not having the correct answer. Like that's the first thing I would say. Like that's the fundamental thing that changed my life, I would say. Yeah, definitely. Certainly in the past, since my mid-20s, that's definitely been it. And then the second thing I would say, which is equally as important, is stop fucking blaming other people for your circumstances. You have two options. You can either endure things the way they are and stop complaining, or else you can change something and do something different, and that's your choice. It's not because your dad told you to do this at university, or your mum told you to do that, or because, you know, your boss does this at work. It's all a choice, and just have the balls to make difficult decisions and do it. Stop thinking about it. Don't be paralyzed by choice and options. Just do something. And those would be the two things that would be most fundamental to me. Trust yourself, trust your gut, do something. Stop blaming other people and relying on other people. That's it.
What should they do though for business? Like, if like
for business?
Yeah, what should they want to start a business, right? What should a young ENFP do? Like, what should they get into? Do you have any like fields that you think would be suited for ENFPs to get started in business?
Well, an ENFP can do almost anything, I would say. Like, honestly, I think our superpower, as far as I can see it, is to come up with solutions for other people,
Yes.
right? We're not really good at taking our own medicine and doing the things that we perhaps advise other people to do. You
Right.
know, once you learn to do that, that's where you really go into that alpha state that you talk about. It's like once you start to self-take it. So what I would say is, if you want to, this is about starting your own business or being an entrepreneur, is it?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So
That's land.
what I would do is I would identify what I know to be a big problem for a group of people. Um, so let's say, for example, I would ask people, I would keep a compendium of problems. So what I would do is I would sort of say, like, so for example, my son is 2 almost, and he's just at the height where he can open doors. And it's like a pain in the ass because he used to close the door and he knew he was okay in the room and he's not going to get out, but now he's like able to pull open doors. So if I had like some little plastic thing, not a lock, because a lock's a pain in the ass to put in the door, if I had like a wee plastic thing to put in the fucking handle, that would solve that pain. And I know there's shitloads of parents who will have kids who are approaching 2 years old who'll probably buy that because it's a pain in the ass, right? So that's one thing I'll write in my compendium of pain points that I felt personally. If I'm at the gym and my earphones, my buds keep falling out because I'm on like some sort of aerobic machine, that's something that pisses me off and it's a pain point. I'll write it down. And then what I'll do is I'll ask other people what pain points they have, and then I'll, try and pick one that actually says, oh, that's an interesting one and I give a shit about, and then I'll maybe try and test it further. But it'd be to leverage your superpower, which is gathering things, and I would see because all businesses are founded in meeting a need or addressing a pain, but that need might be latent, i.e. the people don't know about it. So I didn't know that it would be really useful for me to have my full record collection or CD collection in my pocket until the iPod came out, really, or the Zen or whatever, the first MP3 players came out. So that was a need that I had that I didn't know I had, right? So you just write a whole bunch of stuff, see what you're interested in, and then test it. And then test it with 10 people, ask those 10 people what you think it's worth to them. Say, well, I could make something that would do this. It'll probably take me 6 to 12 weeks. It would cost you $2,000. Is that something you'd be interested in? And then you get 10 people to say yes. You've 20 grand. Maybe it costs you 10 grand to develop it. You've made 10 grand. You have the foundations of a business. Then you go out and test. Is there another 100 people, that are the same as the 10? If not, their needs might be slightly different. And then you can pivot and iterate the product or the service or whatever it is you're doing. And then you can, that's a typical roadmap to creating your own business, I would say, and from my experience. But it comes down to that test. And 50 to 70-year-olds are into your travel thing that you're doing. That's what it looks like. Now all of a sudden you're segmenting, those people, how many 50 to 70-year-olds are there that you can target and reach? Are you doing it in person? Is it in that area? Are you in LA, are you?
Vancouver, Canada.
Oh, you're in Vancouver, are you?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, there's a lot of cool Canadians about, so literally and metaphorically. So yeah, so it's cool. So that's what I would advise. Gather a whole bunch of pain points and problems and things. See which one, do the NI on it to see what you actually give a shit about, or you could see yourself jumping up out of bed in the morning to do, what you care about. Then find 10 people that have that problem, test it and co-create with them a thing that solves the problem. Then, create some sort of value that you can, maybe charge them whatever for it, and see how many customers you need to make a living out of it. Build your side hustle, give up your day job. Bang, there you go. That's sort of it.
All right,
Roughly.
man. Thank you for providing some NT advice there. That's awesome.
Yeah, really poorly. Yeah, that's right.
That was good. That was good. I loved it. That was good. That was very NT. That was good.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. yeah, I think this whole interview definitely proved that you're NF. Like it's like definitely 80% NF content, and you sprinkle in some NT in there. So like
Uh,
it does like I think the personality thing it doesn't like it's not bullshit at all. And like even now like because I was type as play blast consume sleep, and at first I was kind of like no I'm consume first. Then I'm talking to you now, right? I'm like I'm not I'm not NF first. Like there's no fucking way. Like you just like I just talking to you right now. I'm like there's no fucking way. I do NF, but it's not like your NF. Like you're NF. Like you have a poster. Like you're just like waving and shit. Like people can. Yeah, like I'm like okay. I'm bullshitting myself if I say I'm NF. Like talking to you, like no, no. Like inside I am, but outside like you're definitely you're definitely the NF guy. Thanks again, JP, for doing this interview. I learned a lot, and I hope that a lot of people, get some value from this, and ENFP starting to get started in their business. You really provided some really good tips here, especially with like how to get started, because I think a lot of ENFPs are like they're completely clueless, right? But then just going with a pain point concept that you provided here, like find some pain point that piss you off, and then what are the solutions for those pain points? Write it all down, and then see which one of those pain points your FI can get behind. We're like, you know what, I like that. I can see myself doing that long term. Let's go stick with this. And that's a really good advice. Like if I were to condense it in shorter.
yeah. That's your NT fucking super duper superpower. You're hitting it on the head. But
Yeah.
I would say that like just in final thing, because I've been thinking about this a lot, right? And that the way you have the nature nurture argument around the genetics of your type and your subroutines and programming. Like
Yes.
if anything, I think I am evidence in my experience is that how your surroundings can totally influence and flavor your type and how you come out the other side of it. You know what I mean? So it's like it's really fascinating to speak to you, and I really appreciated the conversation as well. It was really cool.
All right, JP. Thanks again for the interview. I'm gonna go say goodbye to everyone. So bye, everyone. Thanks again to JP, and I'm gonna stop the recording now.